keep in mind. Now, coming very quickly to another important critic, and that is Horace. All right, that is Horace. Coming on to Horace, I hope Sublime on the Sublime, Longinus on the Sublime is clear to everybody. The important bits and pieces that we did addressed, whom is he addressing it at the very beginning, addressed to a learned audience. What are the features that he's talking about? What are the things that he wants us to avoid? I hope everything is clear. Now, this particular writer, he is an advocate who, there's a very famous question that comes in, and everybody mostly marks it wrong, that Aristotle, it's not just Aristotle who says that a work of art should instruct and delight, it is actually Horace also. Right, it is also Horace who talks about it. Right, it's also Horace who talks about it. Horace is telling you about the art of writing poetry. He is trying to tell you about what are the ingredients in Ars Poetica. He's telling you about all of that. And Horace's style is going to be followed by Alexander Pope later, by other writers as well. That is something that we'll be able to look at. Okay, now when we are talking about Horace, Horace is actually a person who's coming during the reign of Augustus Caesar. Augustan age in the British era is taking its name from Emperor Augustus's time. Emperor Augustus, we are able to see Horace, Virgil, Ovid, all of these people are writing, they're becoming very popular as well. Okay, and he is, of course, considered to be a path breaking writer. He is associated with terms like carpe diem, that is used during the Restoration period, dulcet decorum, est patrica mori, very, very important. It is sweet and appropriate to die for one's country. Very beautiful lines, because the place was at war. Dulcet decorum est patria mori. So it is very honorable and appropriate to die for the sake of your own country altogether. His epistle to Pisos, that has come in your exam, Epistula Pisonis, epistle to Pisos, epistle to Pisos. Just like Longinus's on the Sublime was written as a letter, even this is an epistle that he's writing to Piso and his sons. Right, the art of poetry is actually ars poetica, or art of poetry is something which is written in the format of a letter. It is something which is coming in the format of a letter that you're able to see. So sorry, it's like so problematic today. Anyway, right, so what are we in a position to see? We are in a position to see, no, Raj Pratibha, it is both inborn and acquired. So, when you talk about grandeur of thought, when you talk about using correct figures of speech, those are inborn qualities. Whereas, how to put across the words, the arrangement of words, those are qualities that can be acquired. So your Sublime is a mixture of both. Okay, now please remember that he is the one who's starting a very different tradition. What is a different tradition? That different tradition is of defining what is the role of literature. What is he helping us with? He's helping us with define what is the true role of literature. That is something, yes, Mohammed, even Wilfred Owen has written, dulcet decorum est, right? It is honorable. Don't tell this lie that it is honorable to die. Of course, he's also writing that. Very good contribution made. Now, please remember, he is telling you, he is trying to tell you about how poetry needs to be written, how it's not just an act of imitation. He's telling you about vigor. He discusses that at length. He discusses the vigor and directness in poetry, the vigor and directness. He's one of the first people to talk about directness. You have to establish a personal relationship with the readers. Once when you'll all start with your careers now, because we are entering in a very highly student focused environment of teaching, even at public colleges as well as private colleges and universities. One advice that your HODs will definitely give you is maintain a very cordial relationship with your kids, with your students, with your learners, whatever you would like to call them. So he is actually one of the first people. He's actually one of the first people to talk about building a personal relationship with your readers. At the end of the day, your readers will be consuming your content. So that is something that even he talks about. Ars Poetica is divided into three parts. What are the three parts? This question actually comes in your exam as well. The three parts of Ars Poetica: poiesis, poema, and poeta. These are the three parts of Ars Poetica: poiesis, poema, and poeta. Poiesis is telling you about how the subject matter has to be dealt with. What should be the arrangement? How are you supposed to be looking at it? So arrangement comes in poema, and poeta is the poet himself. So what are we able to see? That Ars Poetica is divided into three proper discussion. It's starting a new literary tradition. He's starting a new literary tradition. Please remember that. Poiesis, the treatment of subject matter. What kind of treatment are you doing? Poema, it is dealing with form. And poeta is talking about the poet. Poeta is discussing about the poet. That is what the three parts are doing. So the subject matter, if you want to write it down also in poiesis, what is he saying? He's saying poetry is not imitation. So whenever we have, for instance, now net exam, the results will come out, you'll have your contemporaries who will clear, and your seniors will clear it, and they will be giving interviews. It's not that you can copy paste their style, right? If somebody clears the exam and they're sharing a strategy with you, it is not that you have to just copy paste that. It's also your creative adaptation. And while telling you about the subject matter of poetry, he tells you about Purple Patch. He discusses about Purple Patch. What is a Purple Patch? Purple Patch is like, this really well written work which comes just in the middle of a very mediocre sort of a passage, very ostentatious. That is what is Purple Patch all about, right? That is your Purple Patch. Right? So he discusses that, and he also says that language of poetry is always higher than the language of common use. And whenever you're using the language of poetry, have discretion. Have discretion. And always remember that a genre should stick to its meter. A genre should always stick to the meter. That is what he discusses. Right? Then when he comes on, so what are the pointers if you want to write it down on subject matter of poetry? Poetry is not an imitation, it is a creative adaptation, it is an organic whole. He discusses about Purple Patch. What is a Purple Patch? A very beautiful, ornate passage in the middle of a very mediocre passage. In the middle of a very, very mediocre passage. That is a Purple Patch. Right? And third point he says is language of poetry is higher than the language of common man, the common usage that we're doing. He discusses that. And the genre should always stick to the meter. He discusses that as well. Coming on to now, I hope that is clear to everyone. Do you want to rephrase it? Poiesis, poetry should not just be an imitation, but a creative adaptation. Purple Patch, poetry is organic whole. And the language of poetry is higher than language of common use. Use discretion, use discretion, use your power of judgment to use the words. And your genre should always stick to the meter. Your genre should always stick to the meter. Talking about poema, there's a question that comes in, which is the most elaborated section. Poema is the most elaborated section. This is the most elaborated section. And what does he tell you in poema? Poema, he says newness is very important. Newness. And here he discusses, in form of poetry, he discusses about in medias res. He discusses this point about in medias res, in the middle of action. Sometimes you have to start in the middle of action. Sometimes you will have to start in the middle of action as well. So he discusses that at length. Like he also, this question that I said has directly been asked in your exams, and you should know about it. Like, which is the most elaborated section? Poema is the most elaborated section, and he's telling you about newness being so important. He talks about in medias res. He also says that comic themes should not be treated. The way that if you're writing tragedy in a particular way, that should not be the way to write comedy. He says that, right? And all the incidents should need to have a logical connection. They should be tied in a very neat manner. They should be tied in a very, very neat manner. He says 5 acts, 3 characters in a scene, because then it becomes overwhelming. If in a scene you're getting more than 3 characters, it's really difficult. Right? He talks about all these things. Denouement has to be very natural looking. It's not that, oh, ekdam se denouement aa gaya. It's really looking very natural. That is something that he discusses in greater detail. So these are the pointers. These are the pointers that he is helping us understand and analyze. He talks about first the poet, poeta. Poet is the one who's the most hardworking according to him, right? A poet is that is where toil is coming. That is where toil is coming. Very keen observer, hard worker. And so all of you, when you do your PhD thesis, this evening, there was this interaction with a really learned person with 2 decades of career experience, spanning from working for McKinsey Delhi, McKinsey India, as well as working for McKinsey UK, and McKinsey is like one of the most prestigious organizations, like a management consultancy. And that's what she was saying, that you need to understand that how you have to be a proper keen observer of trends. How you need to, and she was saying that now that consistently learning is so important after 2 decades of her career, where she's at a very comfortable position. She's running her own business as well as having 2 consulting projects in hand. She still is doing her PhD, perhaps, so that so there's constant toil. You have to be a keen observer, and she says that perhaps she'll be able to capture her books better. So what are we able to see over here? It's not easy to be a writer or a poet. There's constant toil. You have to be a keen observer, and this is where teach and delight. Poetry should, does, et, you tell, sweet and useful. It has to be sweet and useful. This word also comes haute pictura poiesis, as in painting, so in poetry. As in painting, so in poetry. And poetic inspiration also, he talks about it in greater detail. So these are all aspects of the poet: hard work, observer, useful as well as sweet. So dulce et you tell, and which is sweet and useful. It's sweet and useful. Right? So this is something that Horace is trying to talk about. So what is Horace doing? Horace is actually trying to tell us about the art of writing poetry. He's trying to give us the rules of decorum. He's trying to help us, unlike Sublime, on the Sublime, which is like no decorum. But here he's trying to tell you decorum, discretion has to be used, be appropriate. It's like your interview manual. Do this, don't do this. These are the do's and don'ts. Right? He also, by the way, gives you rules for drama. Please remember that. Right? He's giving you rules. So here, whenever we are saying poetry, it's actually poetry and drama both. Please remember that. It is not just poetry, it is also poetry and drama both that we are talking about. Right? Plays should not begin at the beginning. They should come in the middle of the action to excite a lot of attention. They should be of 5 acts. Right? They should not end with divine intervention. So he's giving you a catalog. He's giving you a laundry list. Right? He tells you who's a poet. A poet should be able to please a vulgar audience, but also give them something to analyze. So basically, when we are looking at Horace or Longinus, they are helping us to analyze or study works of literature. They are helping us understand the general principles of literature altogether. And coming back to Raj Pratibha's question, criticism and theory are both aspects of interpretation. Criticism is rather creativity. The critic is a creator of value judgment. Imagine if critics were not giving us their opinion, we would actually spend so much of time, more than money, in watching things that weren't really meant for being consumed altogether. right? So that is the first important. I hope these two thinkers are clear. Before we go further, let's just quickly come on to any doubts that you may have had. Let's just look at the doubts. I'm coming first to the doubts section to look at the doubts because there are two doubts there. Meghmala is asking, is there any book we should follow for literary criticism? You can follow Habib's for the classical part. I already shared Habib's on the Telegram platform. You can download Habib's from the Telegram platform, and for this classical part, I think you can read Habib's. Okay, right. Okay, Shiv saying Sarojini Nagar becomes San Francisco. Okay, I'm not sure whether Sarojini Nagar is stationary though. Oh yes, Afia, that is such a good mail. I am going to be sending a reply. I want to actually make a quick video also on that because I was really inspired. I will be replying back to you. But thanks so much. Thanks so much. Yes, of course I have, and you're very brave and 200% don't worry. I am going to be replying to that. Okay. But thanks so much for the reminder. I'll need to note this for sure. At your Chobby, right? Of course, I remember your email. Thanks, Atria. The reminder. Okay, I'm coming on to the chat box comments now. Otherwise, I think that was a good question by Meghmala. I would want all of you to definitely read the part on Horace as well as Longinus from Habib's. Whatever part we covered, read it from Habib's because honestly, all the other books that are on criticism, they're actually a copy-pasted version of Habib's. I just allowed the important points from Habib's, and that's about it. So I would rather say that read the original only rather than reading the other versions that we're coming on with. So just read that, go over it, and we'll revise it. Next class, like I said, tomorrow we have a class at 11:15, so don't forget to join that. And tomorrow at 9 o'clock, what is the class? We have Renaissance criticism. Fair enough. So just read a little bit from Habib's, these two parts, and come. Join us right now at 10:30 p.m. for a quiz on new criticism. Okay, 10:30 p.m. I'll share the link on the Telegram platform. Just join us. There'll be a quick 10 to 12 question quiz on the application platform. Fine. All right. Thank you so much, everyone.